Welcome back to the Unspoken Truth podcast. Today's guest is a powerhouse in country music with multiple number one hits and a career that spanned decades. But beyond the charts, his story is one of resilience, authenticity, and finding the courage to live your truth. Now he's sharing that journey in his book, What Mattered Most, a raw and honest look at the moments that shaped his life and career. Please welcome Ty Herndon. How are you?
Isn't it crazy? I have my new friend here. I love this guy. Isn't it crazy? You are stop number one on our book tour.
Oh yeah,
yeah, man. We're all over
I'm excited.
All over the place. But yeah. We got you on camera, man.
Yeah. I love that. I'm glad. I'm glad
nice
to be your
here.
first stop.
Oh, man.
Very nice to meet you. How was your flight?
It was early, but good.
Yeah.
You know,
not too long.
I just turned 105, so I go to get up early, so I get up early. Yeah.
I like that. Well, you don't look a day over 105.
Thank you, man. They over 103.
Yeah, there you go. Anyway, so we're going to go ahead and dive right on in. Just got a couple questions for you that I want to start with. Before the stages, before the number one hits, who was Ty growing up?
Oh, wow, man. I was something else growing up. I mean, I was, one minute I was, fishing with my cousins, and the other minute there's a chapter in the book called Shampoo Boy. When I'm just like 10 years old, and I grew up with all these amazingly strong women, and one of my aunts, down south, if you grew up we grew up Assembly of God. Some people say Pentecostal, just highly active. That's what I like to say. But I used to love going in her beauty shop, and the ladies would have, fire. I don't know, you guys, this is going to really date me. You might know what I'm talking about, but they would have hair pieces, you know, like, a lot of the drag queens today have the hair pieces, and they're just, and they put them on styrofoam heads. So it's not that far of a journey, but I used to love to go in there because everybody was always singing. Mm-hmm. So, we might be fishing or, climbing a tree one minute, but I'd be in there. My aunt, so if you're going to be in here, then you need to shampoo those hair pieces over there. So it was called Shampoo Boy in the book, but I was just this little vibrant kid, and later on that served me well. There's a place in the book where I'm actually backstage at the Grand Ole Opry, and I get to meet Tammy Wynette kind of at the end of her storied career. But that bonded us, because I went in to give her a hug, and I just went around. She goes, "Well, thank you for not hitting the hair." And I was like, I got respect for the hair.
Because she was a hairstylist.
She
before
was,
yeah.
And she kept her cosmetology license the whole time. She said, "You never know if this music thing's not going to work out." So I loved that. And I loved meeting her. And she died not too long after that, but she was so gracious. She loved the story about the shampoo bowl. She goes, "Oh my goodness." She goes, "You have appreciation for hair." I said, "I do."
Absolutely. I love that. All right, cool. And so when you talk about music, so now we'll go into like country music. What first drew you to country music?
Well, I grew up in a family of bluegrass and gospel, and I remember, as early as 5 years old, sitting around my grandma and grandpa's radio, listening to the Grand Ole Opry and the Gospel Jubilee Hour, and just so this little guy, I got called to be a preacher when I was like 9 years old, and that book opens up with that very trauma one's what I call that. But I always knew I was going to be a singer. I really wanted a career in gospel music, and as time went by, that was just not in my cards, but I grew a love for bluegrass and country. Mm-hmm. And, I had one job other than music. It was working at Burger King. I got fired the first week because somebody was yelling at the little girl at the register, and it really ticked me off. So I took a hamburger patty and just slung it across the restaurant, and hit the guy right in the face. And it was like, he left, I got fired, and so did she, and that was it. So
that's a great story.
I want to apologize to that young lady wherever you are out there in the world. I'm so sorry.
So, do you remember the moment that you realized that this is actually could be your life?
It never entered my psyche that it couldn't be my life, and I had this gift to sing. It's the one thing I could do well. But I guess to answer that honestly, 2014, I came out as, I had a lot of hit records at that point, and I just wasn't living my life authentically. I was, had been through some rehabs, and just, we'll get into that in a minute. But I had to get to a place in my life with my dear friend Shelly Wright told me, she goes, "You're going to have to be prepared to walk away from this. For you to come out in country music, it may be something that you'll never get to do again." Mm-hmm. And I had to get okay with that in my spirit. And so I thought, well, I'll work behind the scenes. I'll do something because it's a genre that I love. But it didn't work out that way. It was the story was rocket fuel, and a week later, I'm standing on stage in front of 5,000 people, and I haven't even sang a note, and they're just on their feet. And I knew in that moment the power of music,
Yes.
and the power of the human spirit. And I just walked up to the microphone and I just simply said, "Welcome everybody. I guess you heard the big news," and you could hear a pin drop. And I was like, "I'm a vegetarian."
That's so
And
funny.
they just went wild. And it's like, that's how little it mattered to me. And it's how little it should matter to you. I tell kids this, if you're going to come to town and you want to be in this industry, just be the best singer you can be. Take guitar lessons, take songwriting lessons, just lead with your talent. And I promise you, your authenticity will fall right into place.
Absolutely. Yes. All right. So
I wish someone had told me that.
Yeah. So take us back to your first number one. What did that moment feel like?
I have a glorious story about I didn't even know my record went to number one. And I had been on the road, I've been touring, and I was pulling down Music Row, 17th Avenue in Nashville, Tennessee, where all the record labels and publishing houses are. And I was in my old beat up Ford pickup truck and hadn't bought anything new at that point.
Mm-hmm.
And I had the radio on. It was probably about 8:00 in the morning. And I heard Casey Kasem say,
Remember him?
"Here is Ty Herndon, little boy from Alabama with his very first number one record, What Mattered Most." And man, it just shocked me. And it was pouring down raining. And I remember I cranked those old speakers up as loud as they would go. And I got on the hood of my pickup truck and raised my hands to heaven. And I was just having the best time in the rain, hearing my number one song on the radio. And for me, it was like, if it never, ever happens again, that was
A moment.
I got there.
Yeah.
So and oddly enough, now I got the gift of gab. You may not have to ask me any questions here, but oddly enough, this last couple weeks ago, I was asked to come to the country radio seminar and be on a panel, and the whole subject matter was being seen in country music.
Mm-hmm.
And I sat there and I just, I'm feeling like the grand poobah at this point. And I kind of looked out there at all those sweet faces, those programmers. And I thought, and I said this, I said, what an incredible subject to have today when you're talking to a man who spent 3 decades doing everything in his power not to be seen
Mm-hmm.
in an industry that he loved. And I was able to tell those guys, look, you have no idea the journey it takes for one of these little artists to get that song all the way on your desk.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to play it, but the courtesy that you can do them is to at least listen to it.
Absolutely.
Because what it took to get there
Mm-hmm.
was more than you'll ever know.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So what did success look like from the outside versus what it actually felt like on the inside?
That's a good question. What it looked like on the outside, that everything was together. I became a master liar. I became a master painter of every situation that I was in. You would only see what I wanted you to see, and on the inside, it was a cancer. It was absolutely eating me and destroying me from inside out. And I had no tools, no information to know why it was eroding me and why I couldn't just tell everyone, hey, look, this is the way it is, to be in a genre that I love. But that would have been, I don't know that at that time in country music that
Mm-hmm.
anyone, including my friend Shelly Wright, all of us, we would have never made that kind of announcement.
Yeah.
Because I had spent too much time and too much effort and way too much energy in creating this persona.
Mm-hmm.
And it was working
Yeah.
until it didn't.
Yes, until it didn't. Okay. So was there ever a moment where you thought, I've made it, but realized there was more to the story?
Holy cow, yes. Can we cuss on this show?
Absolutely.
Well, fuck yeah. It was, excuse my language, y'all. If my mom was watching this. There's always more to any fairy tale.
Mm-hmm.
There's always a villain. There's always a beautiful sunset, and I never got the opportunity to feel that until today.
Mm-hmm.
There's just so much more to every story,
Mm-hmm.
and the story is what makes the career.
Absolutely.
And I guess for me, finally getting to tell my story here's the crazy thing: the reviews are coming in, but the reviews that really matter to me are the people that have been with me along this journey for the last 30 years.
Yeah.
And to hear my own mother say, and my mom, I've got two codependent relationships in my life, y'all, and that's with my higher power and my mom. In my marriage, we're fine. You know, not a lot of that going on in business. You know, but those two are codependent relationships that saved my life. But to hear my mom say, when we were walking through some really tough rooms, you know, from arrest to rehab to suicide, to hear my mom say, and a lot of people followed suit with this is so beautifully written. You and David Ritz gave us a canvas that we could, and a story that we could actually sit down with you. And that's why a lot of people saying they read it in one sitting because they couldn't put it down, which I love that, but you can take a break. But my mom said, I was able to sit down and give you a hug and be with you at a time that you needed me, that I wasn't able to be there with you. And it was for my mother to get redemption from this story.
Mm-hmm.
I never expected that.
Yeah.
I knew that I would feel some redemption, you know, just in freedom, finally getting to that castle, from people just knowing what was going on with me.
Mm-hmm.
And man, I tell you what should have taken a year to write a book, it took almost 2.5, because I had no idea I was going to be hiring an excavating crew to dig so deep just to get to a key to open a room that I absolutely did not want to talk about.
Yeah.
And I knew that wasn't going to be fluff, but I also didn't know in my heart that it would change me,
Mm-hmm.
that I would get an opportunity to, and let me tell you something, folks. When you dig that deep and finally open that door, ain't no cleaning crew is going to go in there with you. You got to go in there by yourself and sit down in the middle of it and start figuring it out. And in the figuring it out, I became brave enough to talk about some really hard things and really damaging things that happened to me.
Mm-hmm.
And I never knew in a million years not only the freedom that I'm getting from that, but how it's resonating and paying forward.
Yeah. I heard that before about just writing, when you're writing a book and, you know, just you're going through and you're digging through everything and pulling everything out. You have to go through it again. And for a lot of people too, it's just therapeutic, and you're getting it out and, you know, working through it. So
To be quite honest with you, many times I was sitting in the corner crying, going, David, I don't want to tell this. You know, what is this going to serve anybody? He goes, it's going to serve everything.
yeah.
So I just, you know, it wasn't about shame anymore.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't about that, because I've worked through so much of that in my life. It was more about privacy.
Mm-hmm.
And okay, if I'm going to tell this, and I'm going to tell it all the way, and we're not going to hold back on this, because every moment of it has to be there. And I believe in my heart, that's the reason that you invested in this story, because it's the truth. And if you're going to tell the truth, it has to be believable to the reader or the listener. And I feel very honored, to be honest with you. I said I'm going to get emotional this book tour, but that's just a bunch of bullshit. It's been life changing for even the reader, and for to hear that already I know this is all going to blow my mind, you know, and I know that I'm going to grow and grow and grow from it. So
yeah. Okay. So there's a version of you that the world knows, and then there's the version that you had to fight to become. Which one feels more real to you today?
The one of that, the man that is sitting right here talking to you, this silly little 10-year-old preacher boy who did hair and who's you know, can't kill a deer if he tried, and writes a good country song, and loves his husband with all his heart, and you know, has house payment and a dog, and insurance is too high like everybody else, and has the great opportunity to sit down and be of service to folks.
Yeah, I love that. So a couple more questions, then we're going to dive right on into the book for you.
Are we not doing that yet?
Oh, no. Yes, we are. How did the pressure of the industry impact your identity and mental health?
Whew. I don't think it was the pressure of the industry. It was more the pressure I put on myself to fit in, to be like everybody else. Because really, at the end of the day, I did grow up this little redneck dude from Alabama. I grew up on a pig farm. I'm still that guy. And for me, the pressure of being gay on top of that was not something I wanted. I don't think I wouldn't have. To be in this genre, I wouldn't have chosen that, but to be in this wonderful life that I'm in, I would have absolutely chosen that because that's 100% my DNA and who I am. I always tell my husband, I said, I'm only gay from the waist up. He's like, shut the hell up.
Oh, that's so funny.
Don't put that on a t-shirt, please.
Right. So, what did you have to unlearn about success to finally find peace?
What I had to unlearn about success is it doesn't matter as much as you think it does. Success is really, being able to earn a living and being able to do that with integrity is a really big deal. So that's it means a lot to me, but it doesn't mean everything anymore.
Yeah.
I'm a pretty good cook. I can go do that.
Cook and sing at the same time,
go. Singing chef.
So what made you decide that it was finally time to tell your story with your book?
I'm not sure that I have decided that. To be honest with you, I was always told that if something like this happens, that the book will find you, and that's absolutely what happened. I mean, I went through a really tough time in 2020, and my dear friend now, David Ritz, and I was already a fan because he's written, my God, the Aretha Franklin story, Willie Nelson, the Rolling Stones, the list goes on. And he sought me out and said, I really need to tell this story with you. And let's try. And the man got arrested 5 times at Stonewall, so I already adored him, And,
yes.
And we just hit it off. He was 83 years old when I met David, and we were just building our house, and there were no front steps, and he leapt up on that front step like he was 20 years old. I couldn't even do that. I'm walking a plank, and so fell in love with him, and we found my voice in this, and that gave me the footing to start talking.
Okay. And so with writing a book like this, it requires real honesty, as we've talked about. Was there anything that you were afraid to put on paper?
Every fucking word of it.
Every word of it?
Yes.
Okay.
I've become a cusser in my old age. I don't know about that. But sometimes the word works, y'all. So.
Okay. What do you hope that people will take away from reading your book?
Courage.
Courage.
Yeah. I've thought about that question. So, because it took courage is all the way through this memoir. Not courage that I was actually born with. I'm in a business. You have to be very brave, but at the same time, it turned me into a coward.
Yeah.
And I think I wasn't meant to be a coward. And lies and deception can do that to you, erode you.
Yeah.
And I'm not that anymore.
I love that. So when we were talking earlier about the book and just, things reopening wounds while writing it, while you were writing the book, was that healing for you?
No. It was terrifying. Oh, absolutely. I greet a lot of things with humor because I've had to, so I could make you laugh and you'd want to hear me sing. It's true. I had to, but I try to kind of place it in the right places now. But yes, we're going to get into the book, so I'll just leave you with a yes.
Yes. All right. And did you learn anything new about yourself through the process of writing the book?
Oh, God. Was there room to learn anything new? There were so many rooms, and I've burned down so many rooms, but rebuilding so many rooms. I use a lot of analogies, but I learned a lot about myself. It's changed me. I have. I've learned... maybe that's the next book. Let me tell you what I learned.
All right. And so one of the biggest themes in the book, what mattered most, is identity, truth, and finding peace with your story.
Hallelujah.
When did you feel like you fully stepped into that?
My identity, when I came out, my truth, when I started doing this book, a lot of my truth. And what was the last one?
Let me go back and read it.
Yeah.
So, did you feel that you fully stepped into that?
Oh yes, absolutely.
Yeah?
Yeah, man. Yeah,
Okay.
I stepped into my story, which was in the past. There's been a lot of stories, a lot of rumors. Other people have written my truth, so it was time to hand those books back into the library and give them the real story.
Yeah. And then today, what matters most to you now? What matters to you most? I messed that up. What matters most to you now, and how is that different from earlier in your career?
Everything matters to me now. It matters a lot to me. And early on, I had no idea what mattered because I was so confused about what you thought mattered.
Mm-hmm.
If it mattered to you, then it mattered to me.
Yeah.
Well, now I can go, hey, no, that's I hear you, and my heart is wide open, but that absolutely is not my truth.
Yeah.
And that's what's different about me today is being able to sit down with you and hear you and talk about what your needs are, and then also being able to put what I feel on the table
Mm-hmm.
and coming to a nice place to land.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay. And when people look back at your career, what do you hope that they truly understand about your journey?
Well, I've said this already. Two of my favorite books, Matthew Vine's God and the Gay Christian, Matthew lives here in Dallas. I'll see him later. And then the Velvet Rage
Mm-hmm.
is a book. Two books that don't have dust on them are at my house. So down the road, I hope that this book is not sitting in some for sale bin somewhere. And if it is, I hope the right person finds it.
Absolutely.
But I don't want this to have dust on it. I want it to be handed to people to go, here. This is a story about no matter how big the mess is,
Mm-hmm.
that you can clean it up.
Oh, I love that. I'll tell you a story about my late husband about that. And so what would you tell yourself, the version of yourself who was just starting out, if you could go back?
Go do something else. Go be a pizza entrepreneur. Do something, but don't do this. I'm not kidding.
Yeah, my late husband was, he died in 2020 of COVID, but he had waited. So I think you appreciate that. He waited till he was 48 years old to come out. And one of the best, he's like, I don't know why I waited so long. And it's just, the stories of just hearing him talk about how he was just so happy and so just 100% himself, and just hearing you talk about that.
What a gift.
Yeah. And just hearing you talk about that just reminds me of the conversations that he and I had. And it's just,
and that leads me to this, I want to say I love you, number one. And I love that you found that love, and it'll always be with you. And I can't imagine losing mine. Getting a million years, you can make me cry. But we'll also talk about ghosts, because there are quite a few in this book.
So let's talk about ghosts.
Let's do it, man.
So what are some of the, what are ghosts for you?
They've shown up at the most beautiful time. I believe that we get gifts from, as they say, manna from heaven. We get, whatever your higher power is, whatever you believe. It's an energy. It's something that makes you stronger. For me, like I said, I've got two codependent relationships. My mom and God. That's what I call my faith God. And from the time that's the way this book opens up with me, and that hasn't changed. It's been a. Although I like to say this, how when a newborn puppy, how the mother picks it up by the back of its neck, I say that's how God has carried me around so many times. It's a visual that I feel. But also, I believe that I've had a lot of death in my family, but because of my faith, I have my heart is open. It always has been. Even in the worst of my moments, maybe it's American Indian in me. I don't know, but there's I feel things. And sometimes I'm clairvoyant sometimes, but that's never gotten in my way. It's actually saved me. But three very, very pivotal moments in this book. One, when I was barely 21, and I had been sexually abused, raped by a person in the business, very young. And getting on the other side of that, and that's one of those places I had to excavate, because there's been a lot of really strong women that have come out and talked about their abuse, but it's such a shame-based subject for men, and I wanted to lose that. There's no place for shame in it. It's something that happened to you. You don't have to forgive anybody. You don't have to forgive yourself. You have to just know that it is something that happened. It wasn't your fault, and put it in a place that you can live with it and move on.
Mm-hmm.
And that was for me what this was. But on that morning, very, very early, I had, 21-year-old had 1 foot off the balcony on the 17th floor of the Sunset Boulevard Hilton, and just in disbelief of what had just happened. And I mean, just not even half a person, maybe 3% of a person. And having to go in that room and get that guy and love on him and let him know that he's perfectly still beautiful was huge for me. But I didn't go off that balcony because this sweet little Latino woman came in and just put her hand on my back and said, no, you can, you come back in. You're too beautiful. I mean, I started having, even when I went in with EMDR, and that's heavy meditation. I kind of was able to even see her face,
Mm-hmm.
and it was she saved my life. Now, looking back on it now, I think it was probably my grandmother. I do. And yes, you guys may think I'm crazy. If you I like it if you think I'm crazy. No, I'm connected.
Mm-hmm.
I went to the hotel manager the next day. She said, we don't have any staff available. They don't come until 10 o'clock. So, maybe she forgot her purse. I don't know, but I don't know. But she was there in my room, and she was there, and so in several moments like that, I don't want to. This book is. I like to say this when I come off of something so traumatic like that. I've been told this book is still Magnolias, fried green tomatoes with a touch of Pretty Woman meets the Kardashians. So there is humor in it. There's
that.
Southern humor, but there's also it has to breathe.
Yeah,
the story has to breathe, and the man has to breathe. And so, in 2020, when the second time the world stopped turning, the only thing missing during COVID were zombies.
Yeah,
and I'm not sure they weren't there. So, it was just. It was the end. We were alone, and I had come out 5 years earlier, and I don't use this as an excuse. This is just the truth.
Yeah.
And we worked our butts off to get to a place that, we could actually have a career.
Mm-hmm.
And it just all tumbled. And I know for so many people out there, and I've heard your stories of despair and loss and financial ruin, and just that it just did a number on all of us.
Mm-hmm.
But for this fella, I don't really like being by myself. I'm pretty, I am codependent with that, but I couldn't even talk to my mom, and I had a dental problem going on at the time. And the doctor said I'd already had COVID 3 times.
Man.
And the dentist came in and said, if you even get around anyone with COVID again, you will die. And so the isolation became deeper. And, like any recovering addict, I thought, well, gosh, this is just a one-way ticket back to the funny farm. And I did. I relapsed pretty heavily. And one of the stories that I actually am glad made the book that we were able to tell was I could have known more on that morning, even though I wasn't supposed to be around people. We start thinking really clearly. I didn't care. And on that morning, it's very, very interesting to me. It had been 28 years since I'd been to that particular house, and I could have no more told you how to get there. I couldn't even have told you what part of town, but I got in my truck and drove right there. And you'll have to read the book, y'all, but it's something to do with a pie recipe in there. And this is how there are good and evils in the world. We all know that.
Yes.
And when they collide, it becomes a sonic boom, because I think the last time I saw those guys, I had a piece of pie, and as I walked in the house, they just baked the same pie. And I was like, I'll have a piece of pie. and I left there, and it was maybe a week later. It was New Year's Eve, 2020. I had a handful of pills, and just, I didn't want to be here anymore. It was just, I am not going through this again. And with the many people that I've talked to that have been in that situation, here's the one thing that we all have in common. there was absolute peace in the decision.
Mm-hmm.
There was absolute peace that you were making the right decision. For me, it was, I've left a gorgeous, um, a bunch of great music. I have a tapestry of music that cannot be denied. If I'm leaving that, and guess what? You want to know my truth? Go listen to my catalog of music because it's all there. And I was fine with that. Mm-hmm. And then enter a beautiful spirit. My 22-year-old, all my first cousins and I are close, so their kids are like my nieces and nephews. I'm sure you guys know about this. But I call Josh my nephew, but he was just at a party and took a pill and no history of any kind of drug abuse, and it killed him. And he just had a baby, and it just, he was just a star in our family, and it really shook us to the core. And we had also lost a 17-year-old 20 years prior to that in a car accident. So, and I believe we carry their hearts with us always while we're here.
Yeah.
But there he was. I was able to put the pills down. He was standing. Josh never wore a shirt. Mm-hmm. He always barefooted. Just a little country boy. And there he was standing in my living room with his shirt off. And he didn't have to say much to me. It was just, look at what this death did to our family. Do not do this to our family.
Yeah.
And it was, I'm giving all the book away here, guys, but it is my story. It is and I'm proud. I'm proud of it because it's life-changing, not only for me, but for so many, that no matter where you are, how bad it is, there is a flicker of light, and you can find it. And for me, it was Josh on that day. And, here's another crazy but true story. My friend Debbie Carroll from Music Cares, God bless Music Cares, Musicians on Call, and the phone rang. And to this day, we argue. She says, I did not call you. And I said, I did not call you. And then we finally landed on, it doesn't matter who called.
Yeah.
It doesn't, it's just I was flushing those pills 25 minutes later. And then another lady, Cherie Jonty, I love her. She got on the phone. She had me laugh. She's like, I honestly thought she was black for the longest time, but she's just this gorgeous white girl. She goes, baby, you need to get up out of that floor right now. She goes, you do not belong on that floor. Get up, brush yourself off, and let's go get you a cup of tea. I'm like, I don't drink tea. I'm supposed to cup of coffee. Anyhow, they had me laughing, and what a fine line between laughter and tears that we experience. What did Dolly say? My favorite emotions, laughter through tears. I experienced that, and 24 hours later, I was at James Flowers Institute in Houston, Texas, on my mental health journey. Not drugs and alcohol. Mm-hmm. We found out there was something driving that. There had to be, and I think we all found that out eventually in our program. But man, to find out at 59 years old that you're about as ADHD as they come, that you're bipolar to the max, that you're OCD. I knew that one. But dyslexic. And I'd done a children's book earlier about, I knew there was dyslexia going on because I learned to read from singing to the farm animals. But you guys know, the Fly the Bumblebee. Yeah. At J. Flowers Institute, this went from this, and it landed.
Nice.
And I found sanity.
It was calm.
Yes, which I had never, ever known. I mean, I couldn't even believe how I felt. I mean, they call it a pink cloud, and when you quit, drinking and doing all this stuff, but mentally, it was heavenly. Mm-hmm. It was everything that I always thought that I could feel.
Yeah.
And even the scary things, I could still feel them. But, oh, man, just getting on a simple med, mm-hmm. 3 of them to be exact. My husband today, if I'm getting a little grumpy, he goes, you take your med? I said, do you want a black eye? I'm kidding, y'all. I never hit anybody ever in my life, ever. Just a metaphor. So I feel freedom today. I feel, the message for this interview, the reason I wanted to do this, because my dear friend Larry was telling me how special this is, because this is a message of hope, and you can have laughter through tears. You can have life through hope. There's no mess you can't clean up.
Mm-hmm.
You can find chosen family. You can go out on this planet and do really cool, special things just by being authentically yourself.
Yeah.
And this is a book of that, and it's a book of what not to do, and if you do it, what to do about it. And I'm proud of it. And
yeah. Well, I've got halfway through it, and I'm loving it so far.
What? Not one read? What's wrong with you?
I have ADHD too, and
I
it's
got
just
you,
like
man.
squirrel,
It's
squirrel,
like
squirrel.
I have to do the audio, and then I'm like,
yes,
I have to take too many bathroom breaks and stuff.
Well, what an incredible conversation! Like, thank you so much for being here and sharing your
Absolutely, my
story.
friend.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
And we both know Larry. Like, Larry was telling me about it when we were talking about possibly getting on his show. He's been a friend of mine a long time, and he was also one of the
I'm
ones.
so sorry.
Yeah.
I love that.
One of those people that you pick as that it's family, that not by blood, but like
Chosen
when
family.
chosen family.
Yeah.
When my husband died, he was one of the first ones to make sure I was okay, checking on me and all the good things.
That is so big.
But yeah,
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
good guy. But thank you so much again for being here. You guys make sure to get your copy of What Mattered Most. This is going to be the book. Make sure you get it. Make sure to like, subscribe, and follow. You can also check out Ty's website at tyherndon.com. Also check us out at unspokendallas.com. And then I think, you want to perform for us today?
I did not bring my guitar, but
Okay.
I'll do a little acapella.
Yeah, Amy.
For you,
my friend
you know?
Amy's got a request.
Yeah, what Amy want? Oh, well, the world just lost two lonely people. The world just lost two broken hearts. The odds were against it, but baby, here we are. In our own little place, in our own little corner. This old cold world just got a little warmer. For the rest of my life, I'm gonna hold you in my arms. I started it too high. That's all you get.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that. And thank you again for being here. Thank you for sharing your story. And we'll see you next time.
Absolutely.
All right.
We'll
thanks.
talk again.
Yes.